This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. Like a lot of things, Hollywood has helped us imagine what a world of RoboCops might look like.
Half man,
This guy is really good.
half machine.
RoboCop, what is he?
He's a cyborg, you idiot.
It's a concept that was once only feasible as a Hollywood plot, but in a growing technological world, law enforcement has gone robotic in some places. Only difference here, these aren't half man, they are 100% machine, operated by somebody with a badge.
Police have been using wheeled robots for a number of years for bomb disposal, which, is an application that makes a lot of sense.
That's Jay Stanley, a senior policy analyst at the American Civil Liberties Union. He explained the different kinds of robots currently being used by many U.S. police forces across the country.
We've also seen flying robots, otherwise known as drones, being adopted by a growing number of police departments around the country. And the newest entry is what is often called robot dogs, four-legged robots that a few police departments have been experimenting with for hostage barricade situations and other similar situations.
We'll talk more about those robot dogs a bit later, but first let's talk about how police get their hands on these robots in the first place. Some departments directly partner with manufacturers and find the money in their budgets to get a hold of new tech, but experts we spoke to tell us most of them come as free hand-me-downs from the US military, sent through federal redistribution programs like the 1033 program or other similar federal grant programs. Max Isaacs, a staff attorney with the Policing Project at the NYU School of Law, says that's a cause for concern.
When you think about police acquiring technology, you might imagine they go to a city council, and the city council will have a big debate over whether to permit the police to acquire a robot. And there's going to be some thought going into how much it costs and what guardrails need to be implemented in order to make sure the technology is used responsibly. But when police are getting this technology for free in the form of a donation or through a program like 1033, you're circumventing all of those democratic processes.
Isaacs pointed out that because of how these programs and grants work, many police departments aren't even required to disclose how and when they receive or deploy these robots. But he said it's an issue the public needs to catch up to because robot use by police is rising.
You're beginning to see more agencies purchase drones for reconnaissance or surveillance. You're seeing robots being used for patrol. This is a pretty new idea.
Even though it's relatively new technology, police can get pretty creative with how robots are used. For example, Honolulu police paid robotics company Boston Dynamics $150,000 of their federal pandemic relief money to buy a four-legged robot named Spot. If you have access to YouTube, you've likely seen Spot do all types of stuff, but Honolulu police used it to monitor the homeless population for COVID. Police in Dallas have used a robot to confront suspects in hiding. Video from 2019 shows exactly how they did this. They also used a similar technique for a suspect in hiding in January of this year. That same month on the West Coast, the question of how to best use these robots took center stage. The city of San Francisco was debating whether to arm its police robots. Now, in this case, the city council did have a say because of a California law that required the police to disclose the robot along with other military weapons it owned. But typically, that's not the case. As of now, it has decided not to allow robots to use deadly force against civilians. But it's a question they're reconsidering, and police robots have already used deadly force in the past too. Back in 2016, Dallas police used a bomb disposal robot to kill a sniper. It was the first and so far only time US police have used a robot to kill a person. The suspect was an Army reservist and Afghanistan veteran. Investigators said he killed 5 police officers on July 7th as a part of his goal to, quote, kill white people in return for police killings of Black Americans. While experts like Isaacs understand the impulse for police to use the robot to save lives in that instance, he still says the usage in that manner highlights a need for police oversight.
What's lacking in police is what we call front-end accountability, meaning, in most of government, the rules are set out ahead of time. You have lawmakers creating policies and setting standards that are supposed to constrain how agencies act, before the bad thing happens. And this is exactly what happened in Dallas.
No charges were filed in the Dallas sniper's death. Police use of deadly force was found to be justified in that case. Some police departments argue that in a world that's becoming more and more technologically advanced, threats to society are likely to follow suit, and robots are needed to ensure police departments can respond appropriately in those situations. Opponents of the idea say it's simply too dangerous to arm robots, especially when the public knows so little about them.
I think that the notion of using force remotely via a robot rightly scares a lot of people. I mean, we already have a situation where police violence is, out of control and subject to, barely any, repercussions for officers who use force unjustifiably. And the idea that now we're going to allow officers to do that remotely, where it's even easier and more risk-free, and where officers don't necessarily have good situational awareness. They can't see around them 360 degrees and full sensory spectrum, and it's more likely to be used wrong.
The public is just in the dark about what the robots can do. And I think that underlies a lot of the discomfort that the public has about these tools. They look at a police robot and they don't know, can this thing hurt me? Is it conducting surveillance? Does it have facial recognition?
There are also concerns about tech-related issues that could come up while using these robots, like signal loss or the risk of hacking. As police forces across America explore what adding more robots to their departments could look like, the experts we spoke to say a few other things should happen as well.
The number one should be that the community should actually have a say and should be able to say no. There needs to be transparency about any kind of use of police robots, how much it's costing, how effective it is, what the potential side effects are, etc.
To tell us more about police use of robots, including the debate it kicked off in San Francisco, here's Ben Chamisso.
Whether it's for construction work, sheep herding, fashion, food delivery, or entertainment, get used to seeing more and more robots in your life. Watching these cute machines running a 5K or doing flips is a lot of fun, but give them crucial functions like use of force and policing, and you get a much more serious debate.
Most people in San Francisco are strongly opposed to having robots that kill.
In December, a San Francisco proposal to allow police to use potentially lethal robots in emergency situations outraged civil rights advocates.
Just like every other tool that they've ever used, these tools and these weapons of war are primarily used against black and brown people.
Ultimately, the city voted against the proposal for now. The San Francisco police chief tells Scripps News that fears of robots are a distraction from the real issue, which is having the tools necessary to prevent loss of innocent lives in an active shooter or mass casualty incident. For years, police worldwide have been using robots for bomb disposal and other high-risk situations.
That robot can see, can hear, we can communicate, so you don't just send somebody into that building and then there's a deadly confrontation.
In 2016, Dallas police became the first to kill a suspect with a robot during a standoff with a sniper who had killed 5 officers. The chief of police at the time, David Brown, was widely praised.
I think there was just a general recognition of how difficult that encounter was, how dangerous it was for the officers.
But today, new robots are much more advanced.
They're much more autonomous in terms of how they move about the world than robots with wheels that you steer.
And new concerns are emerging.
Having a robot dog, just having it around is traumatic, is intimidating.
Last week, Los Angeles delayed a contentious vote on whether to accept as a gift to its police force this dog-like robot nicknamed Spot. The device has been in the spotlight before. In 2021, NYPD was forced to take it off the streets sooner than planned after critics complained it was creepy and deployed mostly in poorer neighborhoods. Boston Dynamics, which creates the canine robots, tells Scripps News that any attempted weaponization of its robots is strictly prohibited. The company points out that Spot has already helped police save lives. including a 3-year-old who was held hostage in St. Petersburg, Florida. For computer science and policing experts, it all comes down to trust, transparency, and training.
The absolute key then for the department is to articulate in their policy and in their training the very specific and narrow circumstances upon which this robot will be deployed.
We want to bring these robots in, but we want to always make sure that we understand what the harms could be, and we take all of the actions we need to take to ensure that we don't use them in a way that pushes our communities away from us.
Ben Chamiso, Scripps News.